Hello and welcome to episode 167 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach,
And I'm Jeff.
and we're your source for drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
That's right. Just a couple of regular guys drinking some irregular beers and talking about Magic the Gathering, in particular, the online client MTG Arena.
That is right. We got a new set to talk about. Just came out 2 weeks ago. This
Yeah.
is. I was on a trip. I was gone, so I was in Japan. So I missed the whole beginning of the set. So we're a little off kilter. But this is our first episode after playing the set officially. So very excited for that. But before we get into all those things, each week we bring a beer, we drink it, we rate it on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. So with that, Jeff, what's on tap?
All right. This week we have Grizzly Beer from Bellwoods. Bellwoods is a favorite of the show. It's a local Toronto brewery. Grizzly Beer is an American brown ale that they make. Brown ales, another favorite of the show. So I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, also exciting because Bellwoods is not known for making brown ales. This is actually the first time I've ever seen them make a brown ale.
Yeah, somehow I expect it to be sour still, because just like in my head, Bellwoods is, the masters of sour beers. So
Sours and IPAs, that's kind of their main things. Like,
usually
oh,
both. It's usually a sour IPA if it's
yeah,
from Bellwoods.
totally. Which we might have some more of those later in the show, but it'll be nice to have a Grizzly beer. 6.2%, but it's a 2-2 in our hearts.
That's right. Love it.
Anyway, let's crack this guy open. And with that, we have some magic news. Obviously,
Do we ever?
Duskmourn, the newest set, is officially on Arena. You've all been playing it, I'm sure, but I finally got to play some. Like I said before, I was in Japan for my honeymoon for 2 weeks, and so missed the pre-release, missed the beginning of it. But finally got to get back, and this is our first sips, our first thoughts on this new set.
Still can't believe you didn't take time out of your honeymoon to play a pre-release of a new set in a language you don't speak. But
I did go and play Pioneer actually.
oh,
Yeah, so I wanted to draft, but obviously I didn't know the. I was in Japan, so obviously all the cards are going to be in Japanese and blah, all that stuff. But I did find a Pioneer event I could play, so I had brought my deck just in case. Uh, Swiftly went 1 and 2, but
ooh,
was a lot of fun and got to play against what I would consider very Japanese decks, which are like Neoform. I played against Neoform and that kind of stuff,
ugh.
and Enigmatic Incarnation. That all those like sacrifice a thing, search my deck for another birthing pod type of decks. Um, was kind of what I think of. That and Control, which is another deck I played against. So
Yeah,
felt
I don't
very.
mind enigmatic incarnation. Unless you mean like neoform to me means like some silly combo. But
It was. I think they were trying to get to the combo, but luckily, I was for when I was playing against Neoform, I was just beating the crap out of them, so they were forced to try to get ways to gain life,
okay,
as
they were
opposed to
value neoform is a different thing.
yeah. So it ended up being totally fine, and it was okay. But anyway, very cool thing. Haruruya, by the way, that's if you don't know, the premier Magic. This is a weird tangent, but the premier Magic store in Japan is called Hareruya,
Yeah.
and they only do Magic. Like it's a game store that does not do Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon or One Piece or any of that stuff. There was literally a sign on the door that had pictures of the backs of all those cards, like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, and it just had an X through
Oh, I
them,
love
and it
it.
had a picture of a Magic back, and it had like a check mark or a
Yeah.
thumbs up.
Was Flesh and Blood on there? Did it
Uh,
make the list
I
of
don't
we had
think.
to tell people we don't sell that?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just like Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, and One Piece. I think are the big ones. Um,
Nice. Surprised there's
but
not like an anime card game or whatever, because I know there's a bunch of those that unless is that what One Piece is?
One Piece is an anime, yeah, card game.
Okay. I was gonna say I've seen those around. I just don't know what they are.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. One Piece is like it's got the record of like the TV show with the most episodes ever, like thousands and thousands of episodes. Um,
gotcha.
it is,
Um, I think that's cool and probably something that could only kind of exist in Japan or like in Korea or something too, where the gaming culture is just a lot more
Yeah, dude.
prevalent.
Like, get this. Every single day, they had events every 3 hours.
Jeez, yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. That's unheard of
Starting
to me.
like 9 a.m. Magic League, 11 o'clock free event, any constructed format, like 2 o'clock, any constructed format. Show up. Hopefully you can be in a pod. Um, the event I played only had 6 people for Pioneer, but there was also Modern at the same time and Legacy at the same time. It was just
Yeah,
like, this is great. And then like people were playing Commander in the back. It was just like, it was 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, and I was like, how is this happening?
that's
But
so
anyway,
awesome.
yeah,
Like
it
even
was.
living in Toronto, which, for me is big city and
Mhm.
have a lot of options relative to where I live now. Um, Even then, it'd be like to play a type of Magic that I can slash want to play, I could maybe do it once a week. And I don't get to choose the time. It'd be like
Yeah,
it just has to be Thursday nights. That's
exactly,
the only time they're running a thing that I kind of want to play. So
dude. Yeah,
to hear that like, they just have like, hey, come whenever and we definitely have something. So
basically,
yeah.
yeah. It was really well put together. I'll have to send you some of the pictures. Maybe I should just share them on the Discord. If you don't know,
Yeah.
we have a Discord for the podcast. Go in the show notes and you can find the link to that to see some pictures of Haruruya. But anyway,
Did
sorry.
did you
Back.
pick up, sorry, one last question. Did you pick
Okay.
up some of those iconic Haruruya sleeves
Oh,
that
I
you
sure did,
see
buddy.
at the Pro Tour?
Ooh, yeah, of course. Of course I did. I also got a deck box and dice, all that
I
stuff.
love it.
Life
So that
pad,
means we'll see you
pen.
at the Pro Tour soon, right? Because I'm pretty sure the secret was the sleeves.
I'll be at the Pro Tour taking notes on my life pad with my new Haruruya pen. Um, but no, definitely not playing. I'm not, obviously not a pro Magic player.
No?
Anyway, if you want to be a pro Magic player, there's some cool stuff happening this weekend. There's an arena open for Duskmourn Limited, October 12th and 13th, as well as the qualifier weekend is next weekend, which means that the play-in best of one is this Saturday, the 12th, and then the best of three is next Friday, the 18th. So check out that stuff. Um, Super cool. Arena opens and qualifier weekends, always great stuff. Great ways for like arena players to get into competitive Magic and good times. Hmm. Um, Also, much news, all the news. Duskmourn alchemy cards are coming out next week on the 15th of October. Um, we don't talk a lot about alchemy on this show, but basically those are the digital only cards that are just for arena. I know we're the arena regulars, but we don't really play alchemy or historic just because we don't. There's just so much stuff happening. It's really hard to keep up, especially when there's a whole set that comes out and then 30 more cards that come out 2 weeks after the set's out. It's a
Yeah.
lot.
You got to make your choices. And I tried, man. Like there
We
was
tried
that
so hard.
one time when yeah, at the beginning we really tried. I legitimately thought it was going to end up being my favorite format because the way they sold it, it sounded awesome.
Classic.
Um, but like semi recently, there was a
Oh,
play-in
right. Yeah, yeah.
qualifier weekend or
That
whatever
was
that was alchemy. And I was like,
I
okay,
think that was like June or like May or June.
yeah, that's
Semi
semi recent.
totally.
It
Yeah.
was definitely before the birth of my second son because I
Yes.
was playing
Playing
but
Magic.
before the approach of my second son. Um, but I tried, man. I played that whole
Oh
month,
man.
and I was like, I just like it was kind of fun at the beginning because it
I'm
was all
sorry. I'm
new,
sorry. I'm not gonna. I can't believe we didn't make that joke before your second
right?
son was born. How did I
But
not even put that together? I'm so upset with myself. I'm
I
so
feel like with
mad.
every kid, the dad joke powers increase, so I just wasn't ready
Oh,
for such a
damn
joke
it.
at the
I feel
time.
like there should have
But
been a shirt or like I should have made a card or something. Damn it. Damn it. What a missed opportunity. Ugh. Sorry, anyway. But through that, Jeff realized that alchemy is just not,
I
not,
just didn't like it. I
yeah.
It was cool. I'll give it like there was a few days where I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. Like mostly because it was just new and standard was a bit stagnant at that point.
Hmm.
And then after like 3 days, I was like, okay, I'm kind of sick of this. It's all just like black value piles with the same like two or three cards kicking my ass every
Yeah,
game.
which is not my favorite thing. Anyway, the main reason I'm bringing it up, we usually don't bring it up, but it's because this happens every single time Alchemy comes out. They will have new draft queues with the Alchemy cards, and poor souls who aren't paying attention click on the wrong one and happen to be in an Alchemy draft queue and don't realize it, and they didn't want to do that. So next week on Tuesday the 15th, just be extra careful. Read the title of exactly what you're doing. I know they like throwing a bunch of words like traditional and premiere and stuff. Well, it'll be like alchemy traditional premiere or premiere alchemy draft of whatever. And you just say the word premiere and you're like, sweet, that's me.
Yeah,
Just take a break. If you see a different artwork that you're not used to, that's the
that's
key.
the key. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's although I
So,
played a ton of Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and it still happened to me. I still was in like an alchemy draft. I was like, what? This art is so
what's this?
different than the one I've been playing for like so like nonstop for
Yeah.
weeks. How did I not notice?
So, anyway, just a quick thing. But more formats we don't really play or talk about very much on the show. But this is the thing that happened while we weren't having episodes, but they are putting out pre-constructed decks on Arena. So I don't know, Jeff, if you realize this or noticed, but
I literally did not. This is the first
yeah.
time I'm hearing about it too.
So Arena did this. This is the second time, but we currently have like you can buy a pre-constructed historic deck or historic brawl deck on Arena in the store. You may look at the prices and be like, "Oh, these are kind of weird. They're all in like gems, but they're like all different prices. There's like no real, it doesn't make any sense." What it is that you can buy the deck, which is supposed to help you get into the formats. But if you already own some of the cards, they don't want you to have to pay for that. So if a deck is really cheap, it means you own most of the cards in the deck. And if the deck is really expensive, it just means you don't have any of them. But they're kind of worth like looking through if you want to get into those things. I wanted to see what the hubbub was about and had looked at them, but I had like the first time they did this, there was like a historic brawl deck for Zada Hedron Grinder, which was a
Hmm.
commander deck that I had built. So I was like, oh, if I could play Zada in historic brawl, maybe I'd every once in a while kick it around. And
Yeah.
so I think I spent like, I don't know, a couple hundred gems just to like get it because I didn't even want to look at it. I just wanted to get it and play it. And I've
Hmm.
had it's been a little bit of fun. So
That's
if
cool.
that's interesting to you, check it out. I wish they did this with Explorer and Standard instead of just Brawl and Historic and stuff. But we have draft to get us into those formats. I get that you need a way to an on ramp for historic and all that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
Wizards loves to do this kind of testing too. Like maybe it's we're just testing precons in
Hmm.
a like low stakes environment, and then maybe that means standard precons could be a thing in the future, right? Like
If
right now they're
people
just
are interested.
exploring the idea of selling precons on Arena.
Hmm.
Um, Standard precons are always so hard too, because you don't really want to make them just a tier one deck, right? That's not what they're for. They're for newer players for the most part.
Yeah, but I think part of it is you want it to be a deck that you can buy and be competitive. I think
Exactly. And
there's
it's
like
a really tough line to,
well, what I was going to say is the hardest thing with standard is that you can't always predict it. And so like
yeah.
you think that this deck is going to be competitive and it comes out and it's not. Um, or it's just not using all the cards that the real deck is using, so it just kind of looks like a fake version of the deck.
Well, that's the thing. Like the decks, I think, are generally intended for newer players. And if you include all of the, jam-packed full of rares and mythics that a typical standard deck
Super
is,
expensive.
kind of prohibitively expensive for those players. So,
Yeah. I think
uh,
some of it could also just be like if it was like an explorer deck, if it was like, hey, you want to play Is It Phoenix? We can give you that deck, like, and we can bring, pull a couple cards. Like, you don't need some of the mythics that are in it, or like the one ups for the sideboard. We can dumb those down just to make it a little bit cheaper. But all the like core pieces, like the mana base and the phoenixes and stuff, and like ledger shredders, put those in there, and that deck is kind of nailed down for the most part. So
Yeah, I think they could do the old Worlds thing too, where you used to be able to buy Worlds decks. Just make it on
please.
Arena now and like gems and scaled by cards
And
you
their
already
gold
have.
border
Uh,
was signed too. That'd be cool.
I would probably buy one of those.
I'd probably buy one of those too. I would like that a lot. Ooh, yes. Do the world's decks.
Like
If you did,
signed by Jean-Emmanuel Duprat.
oh, yeah, they used to do this thing. When I was a kid, I didn't think it was like I had one, but I didn't think it was super cool. But they would like sell pre-constructed decks that were the decks from Worlds, like the top eight, and they had a different back that wasn't a magic back, and the border was gold, and it was signed with a gold pen. I had Gabriel Nassif's blue eye control deck, which as a kid I didn't really understand what it was or how it worked.
That was the
Um,
thing. I thought it was really cool, but I didn't understand how to play that deck at all.
mhm. You
And
very
I had
much needed other ones to play against because like
yeah.
if you played that deck against like your friend's deck, like it didn't go well.
Yeah.
So um, anyway, I do want to keep on track. There's one big piece of news I was gonna skip over, but I think I do want to just like lightly touch on it. We don't have to go deep into it because the whole Magic community is exploding about it. But it is
Yeah, I'm sure
about,
you've heard about it.
yeah, I'm sure you've heard about it. It is about Commander. Um, there was a big ban announcement. Um, the rules committee, which Commander is or was run by this rules committee that had basically invented Commander, the original folks. They are in charge of bans, and they banned four cards. So they banned Nadu, Winged Wisdom, totally reasonable. Dockside Distortionist, which is also pretty reasonable, but a lot of people have that card, as well as Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus, which I think are the most egregious ones that people talk about. Um,
Most contentious.
Contentious, yeah. So basically, this all happened out of nowhere. They didn't really give warning that this was going to happen. It just kind of was an email on a Monday a couple weeks ago. It just kind of happened. Um, there was a lot of yelling and people were really upset. But the biggest thing that happened is that choice individuals decided to send death threats to the rules committee for whatever reason.
Come
Um,
on.
Mainly because these cards that I said before, Dockside Extortionist, Mana Crypt, and Jeweled Lotus are all very expensive. And so a lot of people lost money in the process. But that's not a reason to threaten people's lives over a card game. This is absolutely ridiculous and horrible behavior and really disappointing to find out. Like, I understand those feelings, but that's not acceptable behavior. So, um,
Of
anyway,
course not.
because of all of this, the rules committee has given up their job, their volunteer job, to Wizards, and Wizards is now in charge fully of the Commander format, which was never a thing. This is the first time that they actually control the format fully and are in charge of bans and everything, which before they weren't. So it's a new thing. I don't think it's. We'll see what happens with it. Um, but the biggest thing that's happening right now is that there's like a bracket system as opposed to they're gonna look at the ban list, I think, and figure out some stuff. They're building a committee. Doesn't matter. But did you know this? They're making a bracket system for finding games. So like your
No.
deck will be either one of four levels, depending on
Ah.
the cards in your deck. So if you have
So you have to
really
compute your deck level based on some sort of like sheet they give you.
essentially like, oh, this card is a four, so if you have this card in your deck, then it bumps up to this rank or whatever.
Sure,
This
they'll have
card's
like an online thing you could probably.
hopefully they if they have an online thing where it can tell you, you just put in your deck list, it can
Yeah.
be like your deck is a three or whatever.
I mean, you still have
Um,
to like type up your deck list or whatever. It's not trivial, but it's
it's
easier than like going through pen and paper yourself with an
totally
abacus.
for sure, but it's also the kind of thing of like this is really prohibitive. And like if every game store is trying to do this, then like new players are going to be really confused. And oh, by the way, you have to put your thing through this website to know what level you are to sit at a table, and it just seems really confusing. Um, all because there were some bans from a casual format that doesn't do official tournaments, where bans tend to be the most important in official tournaments. So that was a little bit of my confusion with why this all happened. But anyway, uh, really,
This
really
is the first
sad.
solution to the commander um like power level problem. It's
Yeah.
not the last. Let's
Hmm.
put it that way.
Hmm. Yeah, Commander's inherently just a broken format, that really only works if you're with your friends, I think. So,
Yeah.
um, anyway, kind of kind of sad news. It was really just disappointing all around, and but important to just spotlight because it is our game's most popular format and one of the big reasons the game continues to survive.
Hmm.
So, keeping tabs on what's going on in Commander, even though we're not playing it on Arena, is just a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jeff, let's talk about the thing we actually want to talk about, which is Duskmourn, House of Horrors.
Took the long way here, but we're there now.
We finally did. Jeff, I want to hear from you. Like, what have your thoughts been on the set? What has been going on? What have you been doing? Tell me everything.
I've done a little bit of everything.
Sweet.
Um, in terms of what we play. I guess I haven't played any Timeless, so
Sure.
close to everything. Um, so I started with draft, like you do. I
Hmm.
drafted a few times. Then I went on to Explorer because I was like, there's an Explorer deck I was really excited about that I kind of forgot about, and I saw it in my collection, and I was like, oh yeah, forgot about this deck. And some bans have happened that changed things up in Explorer. So
Hmm.
I played a bunch of that, and then I was like, "Ooh, well, I feel like I'm not encountering any Duskmourn at all. I should go play some Standard to actually play with and against new cards." It's not totally true. I was playing some. Actually, no, never mind. The new card edition that I was seeing in Explorer is not from Duskmourn. It's from the previous set, but it was new to me, and so I was like, all right, let's go play some Standard. Actually,
Hmm.
play against some Duskmourn cards, and so I've been playing Standard since then. Um, the set is, really, really flavorful. I think they really nailed that. Manifest Dread is cool.
Hmm.
Um, I knew I was gonna like that. I know I was gonna like Delirium. I knew I was gonna like Manifest Dread. All that's still true. Rooms, I think, are a little like, okay, like I see the play pattern here. It's kind of cool. I don't know if this gives me like horror rooms that we're going into a new room, and like I don't know if the flavor was a total slam dunk on that after playing with them. But
What rooms do kind of, it makes me feel like I'm standing in a hallway. Like, it doesn't make me feel like I'm in a room. It makes me feel like I'm in a hallway looking into a bunch of different rooms, which
yeah,
is, I don't know, is that like Scooby Doo? You know, when they're doing they're running between different rooms and the monsters after them or whatever. But so yeah, I don't really feel the flavor of an actual room thing, and they kind of bug me because I've had a couple times where I've forgotten that only one side was unlocked, and
hmm
I'll go through the decision trees and forget that, and go down one path thinking that I had already unlocked the room, and I forgot that I just didn't spend a turn doing that, and
yeah.
then I get screwed. So they, I think they're still good. Bottomless pool is really annoying. That's like the blue uncommon unsummon one that for
Yeah.
whatever reason always just gets me. Um, I'm
There,
like,
there always has to be that card in every format. It's just like that's the one I'm just gonna lose to for the whole length of the entire format.
yeah, it's just like every single time. Yeah, it's bottomless pool and then it turns into locker room, which is like, they're both effects I really like. It's like an unsummon, and then for 5 mana it turns into like a curiosity type effect where when you hit your opponent, you draw a card.
That just seems like your type of card. I'm not
It
gonna lie.
is. But I
Yeah.
just keep playing against decks that have like three of them, and I'm like, what the fuck? This is not cool.
Who's passing this to
Who's
you?
passing this card? And so now bottomless pool is kind of like up on my like, oh well, if there's a bottomless pool, I could go into blue right now.
Yeah. You're correcting way too hard the other way. Just
For
like
sure,
the
for
all
sure.
bottomless pool deck.
Yeah. Wow, this yeah, it definitely doesn't have a bottom to this pool. It's
Yeah.
really big as well.
I don't have any creatures, but boy, do I have a lot of bottomless pools.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, I agree with all the things that you're saying, and I was really into Delirium. The first deck I had built in draft was like Gruul Delirium enablers. Very
mhm.
important. And Gruul enablers for Delirium.
Gotcha. No payoffs.
No payoffs. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did exactly that where I was like, oh, damn, I got Delirium so fast, buddy.
Yeah. Whew.
Just nothing happened after that, though.
Yeah. My
Uh,
cards all still do the same thing.
I might have had like one or two cards in my deck that actually had the word delirium on it, but
Right.
boy, could I get delirium.
Boy, did I get to delirium quickly.
Turn three, done.
But that's what I love about delirium is it's like
Mhm.
to me it's like that perfect blend of like this is non-trivial to activate. You do need to commit
Think about it.
yourself to
Mhm.
this, but you also need a reason to do it. And like that
Yeah.
deck building constraint is actually a pretty fine line to walk. It's not easy.
Yeah, very much so. But I do like that it's kind of in all different colors. Like, obviously, there are decks that go into it, but like making sure that your deck could make, have delirium isn't, it's kind of a nice thing when you're going through picks. You're like, maybe I should put this artifact creature in my deck just because that is,
Exactly.
I have one card that says delirium, but like that card helps a lot. So maybe that'd be really helpful.
Yeah. And I always love, we talk about draft on rails when there are
Hmm.
some decks where it's just like, well, I'm Merfolk, so I take every Merfolk card that comes my way. And
Yeah.
that's literally just the most optimal thing to do. I love decks or archetypes that are the opposite, which this one is, where it's like normally these cards, I just wouldn't really consider them.
Hmm.
But maybe I take the like 3/2 for three artifact scarecrow creature or whatever, because that's my deck doesn't have any artifacts, and like that would be a huge like the value to me is a lot higher than it normally would be. Whereas normally you just never take that creature, and if you do, it
Yeah.
never makes your deck.
Or you
Um,
take it being like, it filters, so I
yeah.
guess it might help me with my
Eh,
splash.
yeah.
But
It's like it's castable. Like
that's
how
good.
how
Yeah.
bad did the draft go that you're playing
You're
that? Like
castable
uh
cards.
so I love archetypes that do that, where
Hmm.
it's the opposite of drafting on rails, where it's like it actually makes later picks so much more interesting and reactive to how you've drafted so far.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh man, I don't have any artifacts. Do I take this crappy artifact over like the fifth like strong delirium payoff? Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I always have the problem every time I do chaos drafts or every time I'm in these situations where, like, I almost always am drafting way too many enablers just because I used to draft too many payoffs and now I've
Yeah.
overcorrected too hard. Um, so I would definitely be the person being like, I'll get delirium payoffs. Don't worry. I just need to make sure I can get there. And
I think
actually,
with delirium, you kind of want to do the opposite, where it's like take the payoffs and then because the enablers, sometimes it's like an enabler can be, I guess
super
not in
innocuous.
this set, but like an enchantment. Just having an enchantment
Hmm.
in your deck. This set, there's a
Which
lot of them,
there's a
but
ton of
okay,
enchantments. Yeah.
artifact for this set. Just having an artifact in your deck is an enabler for
Hmm.
your delirium cards because it's like now when I mill myself or even just play the normal game,
Hmm.
I just have that extra
Yeah.
archetype.
It's also a really interesting thing of just like, yeah, I'm going to play this artifact creature. Its job is to trade or block and
Yeah, yeah,
chump.
for sure. Like I want
That's
this in my graveyard. If I can trade with one of their
mhm.
creatures, like I'm happy as
That's
a clam.
great. But if I save myself like 4 life, that's pretty good too. You
Yeah.
know,
It's just
it's
everything's coming up Millhouse in
yeah,
that scenario.
which I really love. The other mechanic we haven't talked about yet is survival,
Mhm.
which is like the green white mechanic mostly. Um, which is basically just like you want your creature to be tapped after combat and you get value from it, which I do like, but it's kind of interesting because like the survival deck, like if you put all cards with survival in your deck, they can go off with each other, but there is that one enchantment. There's a green enchantment that you can tap two creatures in addition to paying its cost, or you
Yeah.
have to pay tap two lands. But that card ends up being really interesting with that, just because you're like, I'm not actually an aggressive deck right now. I just have survivors that want to like, I want to tap them in different ways without attacking. And
Hmm.
then once they're big enough, because they get token, or sorry, they get counters, or they get flying, or different things like that, then you can start smashing face. But maybe I'm not super aggro. I just like am this kind of like, I have to do a little bit of value before there's a bit of setup before I can start smashing you. Um, but the main exciting thing I wanted to say with survivors, which I think this is a really important thing for everyone to remember and listen to me. Um, in the game, Manifest Dread is a great mechanic. Obviously, right? We're playing face down creatures. Be careful about tapping your opponent's manifested creature, because more than once have I been playing blue decks where I'm like tapping and stunning a creature, and I'm like, well, I don't know what that is, because Manifest Dread's like, if somebody, okay, sorry, I'm having way too many thoughts right now. If somebody manifests dreads and obviously does it immediately, they like throw like whatever in the bin. You're like, okay, I'm pretty sure that that's either it could be literally anything. But the scary times is when somebody manifests dreads and they put like a creature in the graveyard and then the
Yeah.
other
Then you're like,
card is on the
something's up.
battlefield.
Yeah.
You know that that other card is like a better creature than whatever they put in the yard. And it's even
Yeah.
scarier when the card they put in the yard is a good creature. You're like, what
Right.
the
Like if the card they put in the yard is better than a vanilla 2/2,
yeah,
something's up,
something's
right?
up. And so you're like, that's really scary. And so I was in the position thinking, I'm gonna stun all the manifest dreads
Mm,
because I want to make sure that like they can't flip like up in combat into something crazy, because I've had like the 5/5 trampling worm flip up or different things like that. But then I stun the creature, they flip it up. It's a stupid survival card, and then I just stunned their survival dude. And then they get
yeah.
value from that. They're getting counters, they're manifesting dreading more. It's just like, so just be careful about stunning manifest dread, or I guess manifested creatures in this set, because you just never know.
Yeah, that makes me want to bring up two things that I forgot about with Manifest Dread and then one thing about survival. So I'll talk about survival first. For me, I was a little disappointed playing with this mechanic, mostly because I was so high on it as a limited mechanic
Mm,
before, where it's
yeah.
like incentivizes attacking, but like obviously attacking is not always a great idea, and so combat tricks I thought were going to be a big part of this, and like the classic like green white, yeah. What
Mm,
I tend to play against is a lot more of like creative ways to tap my creatures
hmm.
and still get value out of it, and I'm like, that's boring. I wanted them to just do like, I don't think you should have like Convoke and Survivor the
Oh.
same time. Like that would be a nightmare, right?
Hmm.
So
Though
I
standard.
think it's cool for constructed.
Yeah, yeah.
In limited, it should be like, I don't know. I was excited for Survivor to be a survive, like I'm attacking and I'm surviving,
Hmm.
and I find it's just they maybe had a little too much of the cutesy stuff with the like I can tap things and get this value without actually having to attack. It is cute and it's like fun, and I
Hmm.
think that some of that should exist. In my anecdotal and limited experience, it seems like there's too much of it, where it's like most of the time I'm actually like,
Not attacking.
not me like playing against it. Most
Yeah.
of the time I'm like setting up perfect defenses for Survivor, but it doesn't matter. They're
Hmm.
just gonna like do it
Oh,
anyways.
gotcha. I understand what you're saying.
And so I'm like, okay, this isn't the like combat incentive I necessarily thought it was. Like I thought what's gonna happen is they attack with their survivor creature, and I'm like, ah crap, this gotta be a combat trick, right? Like, do I
Hmm.
block, try to get the combat? But it's a lot more of like, oh, you set up a defense, I'll just tap it some other way. And
Yeah.
it's like, ah,
Like,
okay.
the perfect example of this, like, there are the two cards that like actually want to attack, which is like acrobatic cheerleader, which is like the 2/2, you want to attack, give it flying, and then it just attacks. Like, that is, I want to attack and get through. But like another survivor card is veteran survivor. That's like the 1 mana 2/1. When it survives. It eats cards from the graveyard, so it exile stuff. And then
Yeah.
when it's exiled 3 cards, it gets +3/+3 and hexproof.
Yeah, good card.
I don't know if it is. Is it good? Like I I have this card. I take this card, and then like I play it on turn one. There's nothing to eat in any yard. I can't get it any bigger, and they play one creature, and I can't attack with it anymore. And so like it just it. So it's exactly the thing you're talking about, where it's like it can't attack now, or I'm going to trade with a Glimmer token or something. Like a 1/1,
Yeah.
and there's nothing to eat of value to eat from their graveyard. Like I have to tap this a different way. And then majority of the time it takes too long, so I might as well just tap my other creatures that have survivor that actually do something when they survive. And this one just kind of doesn't. I don't know. This card's been going kind of down on my list. Like I almost wish it was a 1/2 so that like I could attack into 1/1s, but like
Well, that's what I think is so interesting about survivors. Like you actually prefer toughness on survivor creatures, but a
mhm.
lot of them are aggressively statted because you're supposed to attack. So it's like there's
Yeah,
3/2s. Like a really common survivor stat line
it's
is
a
3/2.
3/2.
And I was like, that's such an interesting design choice where it's like actually you would prefer this as like a 1/5, and you just get to
Yeah.
like attack without thinking about it. But
Yeah.
I think they kind of undid a lot of those interesting choices by making it a little too easy to tap them in other ways.
Mhm.
And I appreciate what they were going for. And I think you do need a little bit of I could tap these in other ways, so don't get too comfortable
Exactly. Yeah.
for the survivor deck. But so far, and it's only been a few weeks, it just feels like a little much where it's like they attack maybe once or usually not at all.
Hmm.
And they're still triggering a few times. And maybe that just means when you draft survivor, you put a heavy like emphasis and high priority on these alternate ways to tap your creatures.
I think that's
Um,
really what you want to do, like for sure.
like, guess going back to the enabler payoff discussion, like in this
Hmm.
archetype, you want to be drafting those enablers, and like the payoffs will come.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
that's maybe a theory. It's not well tested, but
Mm.
I don't know if I've ever actually drafted their survivor deck. I've just played against it a lot. But the
I.
other thing I wanted to call out before I forget,
Mhm.
because
Oh,
you
please
you
do.
you made me think about this with
I
Manifest
said a
Dread.
million different things, so I understand.
But with Manifest Dread, one of the quote unquote issues with face down creatures, Morph in particular, but like all of its variants, has always been like the order or the turn that they came into play matters, and you have to track that.
Hmm.
Where, like this was the first one they played, that's the second one they played, and that's the third one they played.
Hmm.
With Manifest Dread, there's an extra mental tax, which is what did they mill when this one came into
Came
the
into play.
battlefield?
Yeah,
Most of the time, it doesn't really matter. But to your point, sometimes it does. And
it
so
super does.
there is no like natural or automatic way to track that on Arena.
Hmm.
And I've been vigilant about it because I'm like, oh man, that's the one where they milled the creature. And so I know this one's like a good creature, so I'm going to kill that one.
Hmm.
But it is kind of like I wish there was I love the mechanic, but I wish there was a natural solution to that where it's like I don't have to like track which card was milled with which
Hmm.
creature on the
Are you
battlefield that
saying
all
like if
look
you
the
could
same.
hover over the manifest dread, it would like glow the card in the
Yeah, I don't know what
graveyard?
the answer is because then if something
Yeah.
gets exiled or what, like
Hmm.
it's just a weird thing that I didn't think about with the mechanic before actually playing with it, where I'm like, oh, this is kind of annoying that I have to like think through what they milled in each setting to like maybe try to guess which of these is the one I should kill.
It
Like,
is so funny because like it is really annoying, but like it's the type of annoying where I'm like, well, I'm never gonna do that, so I just
I'm
immediately,
just not gonna bother. Yeah.
yeah.
Whereas I'm like, oh, I gotta kill the. I'm gonna feel like such an idiot if I lose this game because the like manifest dread creature that I could have known was the good one.
Yeah.
I just left it.
I mean, like, can we please, while we're talking about Manifest Dread, can we talk about the most egregious rare from the set so far? Have you played against this card? Val Gavoth's Onslaught? Do you
I
know this?
have played with that card.
Oh
It is
God,
stupid.
it's
It
so
is so
stupid.
stupid.
Okay, let me just read this card real quick. So, Valgavoth's Onslaught is XX green for a sorcery. It says manifest X, or sorry, manifest dread X times, then put X plus one counters on each of those creatures.
Yeah,
This thing is so rude. So like what for 5 mana, you get two twos that are actually 4/4s, right?
2/4/4s, and it's better than that, right? Because those might upgrade
To whatever
depending
creature
on
that you
what's
might have
under them,
found.
and you might care about milling those cards.
Yeah.
Like 5 mana for 2/4/4s is an outrageous limited card, and
Hmm.
this is better than that.
7 mana for 3/5/5s.
Yeah, and again, all the extra upside. And this is like the fact that it can do either, and the fact that if you really just need a 3/3 for 3 for some reason, I mean, I
You
never
get
had to
to
do that because I was like, I'll just take a hit rather than
mm,
waste this card
waste
that
this
way.
card that you're going to win the
But
game with. The other thing
yeah,
is, those are counters, so when you flip the creature, they still have the counters.
exactly. Yeah.
Like,
This card is out. I literally read this card like 4 times when it showed up in the pack because I was like, there's no way it does what I am thinking that it does. And then I panicked and took it because I was like, all right, well, I can't find what I'm missing. So I just
mhm.
took it and then I played it and I was like, no, it's just absurdly good.
It's absurdly good. It's so unfairly good. I guess the ones that I had dealt with when this flipped, it was a 7 mana 3/5/5s for me. And the first card was just I think it was just a land. It didn't seem like it was gonna flip. The other two was like the 2 mana 2/2 Death Toucher, and then the 5 mana 5/5 Trampler.
Well,
So
of
they
course
flipped
they
the
hit the
Trampler.
trampler, yeah.
The Trampler's an 8/8 Trampler in combat. And then they
Yeah.
flipped the Death Toucher. That's a 5/5 Death Toucher that I like basically chump block with my huge creature. I'm like, great, this is
Even
just
without flipping, I don't know how you beat 3/5/5s in a normal game of limited from one
for
card.
one card.
Yeah.
Just that Valgavoth's Onslaught. That's the card.
And the fact that it's a rare is like you're gonna play against this thing.
A lot.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah,
with
that
play boosters. Yeah.
I'm glad you
Anyway.
called that out because I remember that draft where I was just like, well, we're way behind here. Oh, I drew that card. Okay. We're way ahead here.
Yeah.
Like
Oh man.
it's
It's that's like one of the main cards you want to see when you open your pack.
it's hard to lose when X is 2, and I feel like nigh impossible to lose if X is greater than 2.
Yeah. I and this format it bodes really well for like we were just saying like the survival deck, which is one of the more aggressive decks, doesn't always like sometimes it can run you over, but I it's also kind of I don't know. When I say new in the format or sorry, fresh, the format's new. It's just because I've only been playing for like a few days.
It
But
is fresh for you.
it's fresh for me.
17 lands, I'm sure, has it figured out.
Oh, totally, totally. Which I haven't looked at yet, so I'm not I'm
I
waiting.
never try to look until I like form my own opinions, and then
Yeah.
I get to go look at how wrong I was.
We're gonna talk more about draft next week, so we'll
Yeah.
look at it then. But until then, it feels like the format is slow enough where you can get away with playing a 7 mana sorcery and just winning the game. So,
There's also a healthy amount of like ramp or,
oh,
creatures that tap for mana and stuff like that. So I had a lot of that in my deck, and I was like, just pretty routinely like casting this on like 2/4/4s on turn 4. And it's just
yuck,
like, what are you
that's
on the
so good.
play? What are you gonna do against that? Like,
Nothing. Die. What is die?
yeah, pretty much. And there, I actually ran into quite a lot of like the almost rope and then like nice and then just
Yeah,
like play a 3/3 or something.
yeah.
It's like, okay, buddy.
It's like okay,
Or I think one person conceded to that, and then it's just like this card gets concession. Like it just
yeah. It's that's 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 the biggest card that you're just like, please don't have that card.
it sits on the stack for a while. People read it, they read it again because they're like, there's no way that this is making 3/5/5s and like with upside and selection and like no, that is what it's doing. Yeah, I'm out.
Yeah,
Like
Totally.
I'll go down to
Or like,
next season.
let me see what you milled to the yard, and you're like, oh, you milled some pretty good creatures. Interesting.
Yeah.
Now I will. Now I'll continue.
You milled an abhorrent Oculus.
Hmm.
Just gonna go
Interesting.
ahead and concede this one.
I feel like that's one of the best cards that you could have.
You, I think you misclicked, but
Yeah, I think you miss a port Oculus. You flip it for three. It's an 8/8 flyer that manifests dreads every turn.
nah, the other one's better.
Nah, it's so much better.
You know what I
Um,
actually would think? I'd be like, it's a misclick, or they legitimately just looked at two abhorrent oculi. Had to pick one.
oh God. Anyway, I'm excited to keep playing draft. I will continue doing that as my main thing, but I haven't playing standard, which I do want to get to a standard talk, but I think the standard talk will be best done if we do our Worth of slots
Yeah.
while we get into it.
My final thoughts on drafts before we do that.
Hmm.
I am having fun and I am not doing well. I think that means this is a pretty good format because usually those things are highly correlated. Like
That's true.
you're having fun and doing well, or you're not having fun and not doing well. And so
Actually, I agree with you that I am also not doing super well, but I do
Mhm.
have one story to tell before we get into it. About a deck that was not good, but very fun. I think I went 1 and 3, but that one win, baby, it made up for it. Because I was playing mono black Doomsday Excruciator.
Oh, I
So
thought we were gonna be having a crab talk, but
no, I wish we were having a crab talk. I'm gonna get there sometime.
yeah.
But anyway, if you don't know, Doomsday Excruciator is black 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 for a 6/6 creature demon at rare with flying. And when it enters the battlefield, if it was cast, each player exiles all but the bottom 6 cards of their library face down. And it says at the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card. Now, to be fair, when I drafted this card and proceeded to play a mono black deck, I definitely thought it said that only your opponent exiled all their cards.
I was like, is this even good? Like,
But, but the cool thing about this deck, like I had Doomsday Excruciator, I also had Grievous Wounds. I had Meat Hook Massacre 2. Like it was definitely a mono black deck, like doing mono black things.
yeah,
Um, but the Excruciator being on the battlefield, my MVP card of that like actual game was that I had randomly taken a Malevolent Chandelier because I was low on playables. And Malevolent Chandelier, if you need to be reminded what it does, because
I
I don't,
do.
nobody knows what this card is. It's a 6 mana 4/4 artifact creature construct. It has flying, so it's a 6 mana 4/4 flyer. But it says you can pay 2 to put target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. So I was putting cards on the bottom of my library, and then after I played my Excruciator, so I'm just like keeping my deck alive, and I'm like, you're gonna mill out first, and I'm gonna be fine because I still have my Chandelier guy keeping me going.
I love
And
that
that was the sweetest combo that I didn't know was in my deck because I was forced to play the Chandelier because I didn't
because you
have
were
enough
mono
cards
black.
to
Yeah.
play because I was mono black. And that was hilarious. And strangely, the way I fell into it almost felt like the designers wanted that to happen, you know?
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, if you decide to do this stupid thing and play mono black and play this giant demon thing, this chandelier thing will be going around because nobody will play it, and it'll really help out your deck. It'll be the one card that does that in the whole set that puts cards on the bottom of your library, and you'll really want it.
Somebody somewhere got that card in there, be like, this is for Doomsday Excruciator.
Yeah.
Um, I'm surprised you didn't realize that it did your library as well, because I think the original Doomsday only does you.
No, I understand. I understand that I made a huge mistake. Um, I'm not like
I might have been like not realizing it does my opponent. I was like, oh, it's a 6/6. It's one of those classic demons with 6/6 flyer, but there's a downside.
it's like pretty bad. Um, no, I'm fully aware that like really what I saw when I looked at this card was wow, that costs a lot. It's a 6/6 flyer, and that's it. That's
Like
like
I look at this like, okay, that's a prohibitive mana cost, and then I read it, I'm like, if this were cheaper, do I even want it? Like, we're putting both our libraries to 6, and I'm drawing 2 cards a turn.
yeah.
Like, I'm fucked.
But you have a 6/6 flyer.
Yeah, if they have jump blockers, I'm screwed.
Well, thank God glimmers don't fly, I guess. Um,
Yeah,
but anyway, no, that was literally what happened, and I already had the chandelier on the battlefield, so I was like, oh, well, this is actually perfect.
that's great. Yeah,
Anyway, so funny. I didn't want to forget that. So, all right,
no, that's great.
Jeff, let's talk about worthless lots.
Let's do it.
Can you explain, do our normal spiel on what worthless lots are and how we do it?
All right, worth of slots. When a new set comes out, we take a look at the spoilers. We go to Japan. We think about them for a long time. We ask our Japanese friends which cards are good, and we come back and we tell you, hey, these are the cards that we think are worth a slot in your deck because we know the true currency of MTG Arena is wildcards.
Mhm.
And we don't want you to waste your wild cards. So this is our best guess at things that are worth wild cards. And we do sort of put them in different tiers. So we have some that we're pretty sure you can be safe using your wild cards on these. We call those layups. Then we have the ones that are like, these are good cards. You wouldn't be embarrassed to use your wild cards on these, but maybe they won't end up in a top tier deck and therefore, like, won't necessarily see play. Um, those are our 3 pointers. Then we have our half court shot. These are like kind of the cards we want to be good, but don't have actually aren't super optimistic. Realistically, you shouldn't spend your wild cards on these, but um, we probably will, is
Mhm.
basically what we're saying on this one. And some of them have landed. Sometimes the half court shots go in. So
Yeah,
once upon a time, Atraxa was one of these. I think
that's what I
that's
was just about to bring up. Yeah,
and Lear to say, or was she a half court or a three
I think
pointer?
Lear was a 3 pointer. I think.
Okay, yeah, but it's just like some of these go in the basket. And then we like to round it out by just talking about what we think an overrated card is. Like, you know, don't buy into the hype and spew all your wild cards on this. Try to make an informed decision. Is this card worth being a wild card? We have the overrated column and then an underrated. So like keep an eye out for it. Maybe this actually is worth a wild card.
Mhm.
Um, those are our worth of slots.
Worth a slot. All right, Jeff. I feel like I went first last time, so do you want to go first?
Okay, I was hoping to go first, and I'm gonna
Hmm.
take the easy one.
Okay.
Um, this card I liked. I talked about it before,
Hmm.
when we did our first previews of this set. I've now played against it a lot. I haven't played with it, but I've played against it, and I've seen you get your ass kicked by it. So
Ouch.
my layup is Abhorrent Oculus.
Hmm.
This card is great, man. Like
It's
when they reanimate this thing against you, you're just like, the fuck am I supposed to do?
yeah. So explain the card and explain why. Like what is happening with this?
All right. Abhorrent Oculus, 2 and a blue for a 5/5 flyer. That's right.
Mhm.
As an additional cost to cast it, exile 6 cards from your graveyard. And at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, manifest Dread. So, this is a 3 mana 5/5 flyer that makes a 2/2 every turn cycle and
Mhm.
actually, like, does it immediately. It makes a 2/2 right away. Uh, that's incredible. The only restriction is you exile 6 cards from your graveyard. But, I mean, come on, there's ways to cheat that restriction. The biggest way in standard right now is there's a lot of like white reanimator spells that are only for cheap creatures, and they all target like CMC 3 or less, or mana value
Mhm.
3 or less. And so the deck used to run kind of like a Monastery Mentor, Howdy Jin kind of package as their reanimator targets. now it's thrown this into the mix. I personally think they don't need the Mentor. They should cut that and just run Oculus and Jin. Um, be really low to the ground. But this deck is, for me, went from like kind of meme deck to serious contender because this
Hmm.
card is such a much better target to reanimate than what they had before. And
This is very good.
yeah, like try having this thing hit the board against you on turn three, or sometimes it's like two of them on turn four kind of thing. You're just like, what was I supposed to do against that? Like, it's absurd.
It's the thing that's funny is that like this was an existing deck, like you were saying, but like that deck needed a ton of setup. Like Monastery Mentor and the Haughty Djinn, like you need so much setup. You have to fill your graveyard. You gotta play your creature and hope that it like survives, like all that stuff. And now they just have like the early game of like I get Oculus on the battlefield on turn three. I could just kill you right now. And then if you do deal with the Oculus, now here's a 10-4 Haughty Djinn that you have to try to figure out what to do with. So
Exactly.
like,
None of their previous reanimator targets did anything immediately. Like you
mhm,
needed to cast more spells if it was a mentor,
yeah,
or you needed a protection for Howdy Jin because it's just kind of big.
yeah,
And this one is like, no, immediately manifesting dread.
mhm,
And a lot of the time it feels like that's another
enough.
Oculus or a Jin that's under
Mhm,
that 2/2 that or one of those
it's true.
2/2s that they make. You're just like, God damn it. Or a mentor that they can flip later and
Mhm.
go crazy. Again, I don't really think they should be playing the mentor because
I,
it's
I,
always
I,
been bad
yeah,
in
I
the
think
games I've
Mentor is
played. But
mainly in like the sideboard for I don't know what reason. Just
maybe, yeah. Just because it
people
was
that
like
have
the
targeted
originator
removal.
of the deck. The
Yeah,
original deck started as like, I'm going to reanimate Monastery Mentor.
yeah. And then they're
Yeah,
like,
it's
well,
like,
I guess we could play Haughty Djinn too. And
yeah.
then it kind of went from there. But no, definitely agree. That is absolutely a layup. And yeah, you were right. That card, it's I don't think it's doing exactly what you were. I
Yeah.
mean, you were thinking it was going to be like a soul tie deck, but this one, it would be cool to see another one. But this one seems
I'll
very
clarify. I
fast.
wanted to build a Sultai deck, and I
Gotcha.
still do,
Okay.
but I definitely didn't see the connection to that blue-white, like
Helping hand.
cheap, yeah, helping hands.
Yeah.
It's really about helping hands, and I forget what the other one's called, but it's like bad helping hands in that deck
Yeah, it's
because
like
it costs
bad.
two.
It costs two,
Uh,
but it gives it a +1/+1 counter. It was from Brothers War.
and it doesn't, one of them taps it, which has mattered a lot in my
Both of
games.
them, Helping Hands taps it.
Yeah, and the other one actually puts it untapped, and that does make a difference.
Yeah, because then you can
Um,
actually block for that turn. But
block, yeah.
anyway,
But no, this card is a house,
mhm,
and like because of pick lock prankster, I want to say it's
mhm,
called. It's not that hard to exile six cards from your graveyard.
no,
Like it doesn't come down on turn three naturally cast,
mhm.
but they just cast it later all the time. Like
I just
the
yeah, because like the way they do it on turn three is just chart a course, discard it, Helping Hand, put it on the battlefield.
or like prankster on turn two
Hmm.
finds the reanimator spell and mills this. That happens to me all the time. I'm just like,
Yeah,
this is your deck at peak performance, and I really wish that I was playing that deck, but
yep. I know that feeling. I was yep. Anyway, great choice. I knew you were going to pick that, and I wasn't even trying to pick it. Um, I was picking
cool.
another card that is another obvious one, but that's what layups are for.
Yeah.
If you already know these cards, this is not for you. You know, we're telling people that aren't listening or don't know what's going on, and so I need to put a little stamp on here. Um, I don't care what other people say, but ley line of resonance, this card is something we need to
Of
remember
course.
that
Yeah.
it happened, and no matter what happens with this card, I just wanted to to make sure that we say something about it. But this is a card that it's a rare. It's worth a slot in your deck. It's proved that, and its explosive start to the format. Leyline of Resonance is 2 red for an enchantment. And as all ley lines say, if it is in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield. So it really just costs 0. And it says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only a single creature you control, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Um, this is slotting right into like mono red decks as well as the Gruul Prowess decks. I think Gruul Prowess might be the more popular one, essentially going right into the deck that I have loved for, Picnic Ruiner on.
Yeah,
This is actually the card that's bringing Picnic Ruiner back in the deck. So Slick Shot Show Off pulled Picnic Ruiner out of the deck because Leyline of Resonance cares about, like, obviously you're targeting things and doubling spells. Having a creature with double strike is more important than having a creature that where you get to combo off because your Slick Shot doesn't care about the copies being cast. Anyway, so I'm happy that Picnic Ruiner is coming back, but really the big egregious thing with this card is that it comes down on turn one or two copies, and you play like a Heartfire hero, and then you can just start copying things onto it, and you can kill people like turn two,
turn two.
turn
Yeah,
three, like, and it happens fairly often. So like,
turn two is possible, and turn three is likely if
yeah,
this is on the battlefield with no interruption from your opponent.
yeah. Because Heartfire Hero gets counters when you target it, and then you're putting a bunch of other things on top of it, and like if you're using the Scamp as well, they're playing what is the Scamp? It does a very
Cacophony Scamp.
Cacophony Scamp. It's a very similar thing with Heartfire Hero, except for when it deals damage to your opponent, you can sacrifice it, and it deals the same amount of damage to your opponent. So um, yeah, this card is just exploding. Best of one queues are in shambles because of this card.
Yeah, I'm glad
Um,
you mentioned that because we have a tendency to Zach and I generally play best of three,
mhm.
and so um, but we do know we have best of one fans, and we forget to mention often that we're usually thinking best of three when we do these
When
things.
we talk about stuff in general,
But this
I
card has completely changed best of one. Is like
mhm,
absolutely worth calling out for that. So
yes, and this is the type of card where it's like it's really oppressive, and if it ends up being the type of card where I don't think it's going to be this, I don't actually think it's oppressive enough to get a ban, but Arena is great. So if you're in paper, when there's a ban, you don't really know whether you want to invest into it or not. Because if you put a bunch of money into those cards and they get banned, your whole deck gets ruined. In Arena, it's the exact opposite. You want to push into any card that looks like it might be banned because you get reimbursed. If if you use four rare wild cards on this like ley line, and it gets banned, they just give you four rare wildcards back, and you still have the ley line for like timeless or whatever other format you could play it in. So this is the
Explorer, whatever. Yeah.
safest thing. Like, buy four of these, and the rest of the Gruul Prowess deck is super cheap. Like, either you have all those cards before, or like they're all basically uncommon. So
Yeah.
I think this is super safe. Get this card; it's great.
And I think you usually have a window between when they announce a ban and when the ban goes live on Arena.
It does, yeah.
And so you have like a day where you can go in and just craft them
hmm
to
So
pick
like,
up those wild
if
cards.
you don't do it right now, you can craft it whenever that happens.
Yeah.
Though I still don't think it's going to get banned, but
I agree, yeah. But I how many Commander fans did we just like convince to come play Arena that,
yeah.
just get
Hey,
devastated by the bans?
yeah, like imagine the RC bans Mana Crypt and then pays every person for
Yeah,
all
yeah.
of the
You would have
money they put
made
into
money for buying those.
it. Imagine, holy shit, that'd be crazy. Um, but yeah, that's kind of what it's like being an arena player. So, uh, just reminding everyone that arena's awesome and it's really nice to be in.
Yeah.
Um, sweet. So let's jump over to our three pointers.
Yeah.
So we're snake drafting this like we
I
normally do,
assume
right?
so, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I get to go next.
Mhm.
Yes.
As long as you don't snake me.
Oh, I'm hoping to. I don't know if I will, but this card for three pointers, um, in the past, it's kind of an interesting space. Like layups, you know for sure, And then half courts, you're like, probably not, but would be cool. Three pointers are always in a weird space where you're like, it's really hard to pin them down. And I've decided this time I'm going for like a solid sideboard card.
Okay.
So I've decided that my three pointer for this set is Ghost Vacuum.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure it's Ghost Vacuum.
Yeah. So Ghost Vacuum is a single mana of any color. It's an artifact at rare. And it says you can tap it to exile target card from a graveyard. And then it also has an activated ability. You can pay 6 and tap it, sacrifice Ghost Vacuum, put each creature card exiled with Ghost Vacuum onto the battlefield under your control with a flying counter on it. Each of them are 1/1 spirits in addition to their other types, and you can only activate it as a sorcery. So this card is bonkers. This is
Yeah.
like a cheaper unlicensed hearse that kills way better than unlicensed hearse did.
Yeah.
I think so. Like you can exile whatever you want. Obviously, it only hits one card, and hearse hits two. But this is the card that you just get to sit there when your opponent's trying to like abhorrent Oculus. You just get to eat it out of their graveyard. At end of turn, you eat whatever creatures around, even your own. And then you just get to 6 mana and you get to dump a bunch of shit on the board in the specific Oculus, you know, game. You get to eat their Oculuses, crack it, make a bunch of 1/1 flying Oculuses that manifest dread every turn. That's
Yeah.
really nice. But even the situation of just like, it's a really great card for eating graveyards. I don't know. Anytime you can just have something sit there and just, it's kind of like a codex shredder that mills them. Is like this just eats them every turn. And
Yeah.
yeah,
It's worth calling it, you can eat your own creatures. So
hmm
you you can sort
you
of
should.
store a used up creature. If your
Hmm
deck doesn't care about graveyards at all, you can store your own creature in this. And if your deck does care about graveyards at all, you can like fight your opponent's graveyard hate when they go to exile something. You're like, no,
hmm
I'll exile it and throw it under my ghost vacuum instead. So, you know, plan A, or like, you know, priority number one, why
hmm
you play this card is to
Attack.
hate on your opponent's graveyard,
Hmm
but it's not bad just on its own in like exiling creatures that you've played and then recasting them all later.
Yeah.
I have a funny story about this card because generally, especially in a new format, I wanted to play Rakdos Sacrifice, right? And I know
hmm
that it's been a couple weeks into the format, someone else has done it. So I go look it up online and I download a list. And traditionally, what I'll do is I'll download that list. I'll do a quick scan for any cards that like are rares or mythics that I personally just like don't think are worth it, and I don't want to spend the wild cards on them.
hmm
And then I will take out any rares or mythics from the sideboard because the
hmm
sideboard's such a specific thing. It's so early in the like season, and like we don't know what's going to be good. I don't want to spend wild cards on my sideboard.
hmm
So did that, main deck looked fine. And then I go to craft, I'm like, oh, that's more rares than I was thinking. And I go and realize there's a bunch of rares in my sideboard. And I go to look and it's Ghost Vacuum. So I'm like literally about to click it out of my deck and it hovers up and I read it. And I'm like, whoa, this card's now we're crafting these. Like that's
hmm
fine. This card I'm good to craft. Like what is that? That's some of the best graveyard hate I've ever seen. So it was just funny because usually I'm like, why would you ever craft rares on a sideboard so early in the format? And then I read this card and I'm like, no, like graveyards are always relevant, and this is some of the best like anti-graveyard stuff around. Like,
It's
imagine exiling Atraxa with this.
oh my god. You get all of, I mean, you get a 1/1 Death Touch Vigilance Flyer,
Yeah,
but
it's
you also draw a
Atraxa's
bunch of
not good
cards,
because it's a
obviously.
7/7. It's good because like
Of
it
course.
draws you a fuck ton of cards.
But like anything that ETBs, anything that does that.
You
Also,
know,
the
all the creatures that people play these days, like they get value on the
everything.
way in.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
It's a Shieldred that just sits there, you know.
yeah,
Um,
Shieldred, perfect example too.
yeah.
Like. don't care necessarily that it's a 4/5. It's a 1/1 death touch that
Yeah, the flying death touch
drains.
that
Yeah.
drains. Um, the other thing I was gonna say when we were talking about the huge like manifest dread card, the Valgavoth's onslaught,
Yeah.
this is like one of the cards I want to open and draft. Like I would love to pack one pick one a ghost vacuum. That's a
Oh,
great place to start a draft.
yeah.
Like,
It's the classic, like, you're going to play this no matter what
mhm.
you go into. Like, with Valgavoths, it's like maybe green just gets totally cut off.
And you're
And I'm
like,
just sitting here forcing green because this card's that good.
mhm.
This is like, no matter what I play, this card's going to dominate the game.
I've played with and against this in draft, and like it is just so brutal having a graveyard deck, which is all the decks in draft. They have some sort of graveyard something, and
Yeah.
Ghost Vacuum's just like, oh, sorry, you just lost your artifact creature. That's both your creature and your artifacts for Delirium. That sucks.
Whoopsies. The fact that you
Um,
can exile anything too.
yeah,
And I don't think this card is that bad in a non-graveyard set where it's just like I'm just gonna soak up 5, 6 creatures and then
mhm.
create 6/1/1s later that
Yeah.
all have effects and they're all flyers. Like that's just not that bad.
I've even had my opponent like blow this up, which like that does suck when you like eat a bunch of creatures. But like if you spent like I don't know 5 turns destroying their delirium and then they blow it up, you're like that actually was still worth it for
Spent
one
one mana
mana.
on this. Like you're probably
Like
up in the mana exchange.
oh, it was and like it's some tempo stuff. I don't know. Ghost Vacuum is I'm like looking for it online, being like, how many copies can I buy? You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah. How do I get these? Uh, because I magic is a financial instrument. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah. They better not
yeah,
ban
I
it, or I'm
just
gonna
I just can't,
scream.
I'll never get over looking at it and be like, oh, it's a random like anti-graveyard artifact that's a rare. Like, about to click
Mhm.
it, I'm like, oh wait, it's so good though. It's just so so good. Like, it's definitely the anti-graveyard hate you want in
I never
standard.
thought that a card that was referencing Ghostbusters would be so good, and I would love it so much. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's great.
It's just great.
Um, cool. I guess I have to make a choice now.
You do. It's
Ghost
time.
Vacuum was my pick, but I had a feeling you might pick it as well based on
Yes.
our Discord.
Yeah,
So
I was going on and on about it today. So,
yeah. So I had a backup, luckily.
mhm.
Um, and this card is a card that I just really like and goes into a deck that I've liked in standard for a while. But B, I've also seen it in an archetype that I think is quite strong in standard, if maybe a
Mhm.
little underplayed. So I chose Fear of Missing Out.
Mm.
This is one in a red for a 2/3. When it enters, discard a card, then draw a card, and has Delirium. Whenever it attacks for the first time each turn, if you have Delirium, there's an additional combat phase after this one for a specific creature. So you target, uh, hold on, let me just read it. For the first time each turn, if you have Delirium, untap target creature, and then there's an additional combat phase. So if
Mhm.
you have like a bunch of Vigilance, they get to attack the second time as well. But generally, the idea is like one thing gets to attack.
Mhm.
This card rocks with Inti. Love this card with Inti
Mm.
because like it just works both ways. Comes
Mhm.
in, it discards, and you draw, which Inti loves. And then giving it additional counters help it attack to trigger that delirium, and the attack triggers Inti again. So this is like a really excellent 2 drop for the black red like Inti aggro deck
Oh, I
that
did
I've
not think about that.
that I have loved for a long time, and I've played with it, and it is everything I dreamed of in that deck. So this card's dope, but I've also been playing against green red Delirium quite a bit, and
Mhm.
that deck seems strong to me, man. Like it just seems like it can beat down with a regular draw, and then if it has Delirium, it just gets turbocharged.
Ooh.
And
I have not run into this deck yet
oh yeah,
in
green red
standard.
Delirium, it's like a real
That
I've
sounds
played against it
cool.
a few times and I've always been impressed with it. I'm just like, this thing can do its thing without Delirium, like just as
Mhm.
a green red aggro deck. It just feels like a Gruul aggro deck. But then if Delirium gets turned on, you're just gonna die. Like,
Hmm.
and then it has an enchantment here. It has artifacts in it. There's like a one drop that's a 3/3, but if you have Delirium, it can attack, and then it has another bonus on top of that. Um, that deck has, I think I've like come away unscathed by getting lucky a couple of
Hmm.
times where they just draw a bunch of lands and stuff.
Yeah.
But I I don't know, I don't know, tier one. That's why this is like a 3-pointer. But I wouldn't be surprised if it nets out as a tier
Just
one
like
deck because it just seems
scoops into it.
strong.
Yeah.
It's at least tier two.
Hmm. Nice. No, fear of missing out. So this was the one delirium payoff I had in that draft deck.
Oh, nice.
Um,
Yeah.
so I was able to play with it, but because the rest of my deck was kind of garbage, I wasn't able to like punch hard enough. But no, this card's super sweet. The only thing about it is that I don't know if it fully encapsulates fear of missing out in the artwork.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't totally get it. Like the art and the design, none of it screams FOMO to me. I mean, maybe like attacking again, but it's like you attacked the first time generally, so you didn't
yeah. Did you
miss.
miss out on the thing? Though, to be fair, looking at the card and hearing your story about it does make me feel like I'm missing out on the card and I want to play it. So maybe that is part of it because it does sound
Yeah.
like a lot of fun. And I do want to have multiple combats, at least with one creature. So um, I don't know, but super solid. Totally makes sense. Love it. Anyway, um, Jeff, are you ready for your half court? It's here.
I am. I
Okay.
feel like this is an appropriate half court shot. So I selected the Swarm Weaver, which is 2 green black for a 2/3
Yes.
legendary artifact creature Scarecrow.
Hmm.
When it enters, you create two 1/1 black and green insect creature tokens with flying. And then it has Delirium as long as there are 4 card types among cards. Insects and spiders you control get +1/+1 and have Death Touch. This is a strong card. Like it's a 2/3 plus 2/1/1 flyers,
Hmm.
and then it pumps those things later. And it is itself an artifact to like enable Delirium. The reason I think it's a long shot is just like black green mid range just has so many options to choose from right now.
At
So
four, yeah.
if you're gonna play this, you're playing it in some sort of Delirium deck, and I don't know that black green is where that Delirium deck lives.
Hmm.
But like this is a real card. If Delirium is a thing, like we're talking a 2/3 and 2/2/2 flying death touches. Like that's crazy. If Delirium's like, is this worth jumping through those hoops for though? Like you need other
Hmm.
reasons to be in that black green or Sultai or Jund. Like,
I think Jund probably,
yeah, like
but
Delirium list.
hmm.
But if you're there, this is a house. And so I love those kinds of decks. This is part of me being optimistic and wanting that to be a
A
thing,
thing.
but just being realistic about like what 3-year standard looks like now and what the green black decks have access to. It's like the way standard works, you're probably just better off playing your typical like green black list that has the innkeeper like Vraska combo as a instant out and then just a bunch
Hmm.
of good shit. So I don't actually anticipate that this sees play, but if a green black delirium deck exists, this could definitely be a part of it.
Hmm. Yeah, obviously because like the artifact creature stuff, it doesn't. It definitely seems cool, and I'm looking down and seeing like winter misanthropic guide, and that just seems like yeah, if you want to build like a Jund delirium deck, which I think is those are the colors that you want to be in if you're doing
Yeah.
delirium stuff. And you want to be a little bit bigger than the like fear of missing out and the inti stuff.
Yeah.
Like those could possibly be a part of it, but um, if there's some sort of delirium deck that's lasting a little bit longer, that could be it. But I do like the Swarm Weaver, and I've seen it a couple times in draft and been upset that I didn't take it because it was gold at the time, and I just should have committed to playing a gold card. But
I also feel like this card didn't need to be legendary, but I don't know if that's a commander thing.
it's for sure a commander thing. Yeah.
Scarecrow tribal commander, finally. Is that
Probably not. No, because there is a Scarecrow commander already. It's like five color is really good. It just goes in that deck, I guess. And but like it's I think the nowadays the word legendary just like screams commander. It's just like
yeah.
that's it. Like, oh, is this card Oh no, it's a commander. Okay.
Yeah.
Or that gives the ability. You know what was crazy to me actually was that all of the overlords aren't legendary.
Right?
I
Like, how
definitely
are
thought
they
that
not
they
legendary,
were.
but this thing is from a game design
Yeah.
standpoint,
Because I was like, I saw like two overlords on the battlefield today, and I was like, oh, that sucks. Okay, now I have to deal with two of these. That's just great. Wow, they're so strong. But like the Mind Skinner is a legendary enchantment creature. But
Right.
like
Like,
Overlord of Mist Moors isn't. Like, come on. Like they
yeah.
should be legendary. Like, don't make me play against two of these. It's not fair. But no, I really like that pick. It feels very half court, and I feel like I have two that I've kind of picked, but like one of them doesn't feel super half courty, but in the context that I have been playing it, it does, but like I just feel like it's not really a half court shot. So I think regrettably I won't pick it. It just feels too cheap and like rude. But anyway, I'm picking a different card. I'm picking another card that's super cool, a little flashy,
Okay.
and I don't. It just there. It's the same kind of thing that you were saying. It's like there are other cards at this like mana cost in this color that do its job, and like this one is just like kind of a lightning rod and just won't do what you want it to do,
Mm,
and that's Unstoppable Slasher. So, two and a black
yeah.
for a 2/3 creature zombie assassin at rare. It has Death Touch. And it says when it deals combat damage to a player, they lose half their life rounded up. Crazy. And then when it dies, if it had no counters on it, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control with two stun counters on it. So it just keeps coming back over and over again, and it's trying to slice you up with its like circular saw hand. um in reality, if you have any sort of removal, you hit this with it. And in the same reality, um because of graveyard stuff, because of Haughty Jin, because of our Oculus, and some of the,
Ghost vacuum, baby.
well, Ghost Vacuum for sure, but also we were just seeing like an uptick of like removal in black is changing to
Exile.
exile.
Yeah.
And so this card looks like it's coming back forever, but really, like, if you've played any decks with like Enduring Innocence or any of those, the 3 mana ones, like anoint uh
Anointed set. No, anoint the. Yeah, yeah. I know the card. The
the
Exiles CMC3 or less.
yeah, 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 unless you have poison counters and then it exiles anything. Um it's a 2 mana black instant. That card is starting to run around because of this Oculus deck.
Yeah.
So that randomly hates on our slasher, as well as like, are you not just playing the vampire from Ixalan, the 3 mana 1/4 death touch that makes draws cards and does stuff? But I like this card so much. Like it seems so scary and cool. um I know Ash Liz will put out a video with Unstoppable Slasher with Delny. So like it's unblockable and stuff, like,
Mm.
or like you're doubling triggers and things. Like that's really cool. Um I like all those things. It just
Yeah, I
I
played. I played against this card. It was like a mono
mhm.
black deck, and it would. The idea was this into Bloodletter of Aclazotz,
Ecclesats, yeah.
which I guess is an insta kill. Um, it was fairly easy to navigate my way around that,
Hmm.
but it did. put some pressure on me where I was like, oh,
It
okay. If something hits me, if this thing hits
mhm.
me, I die.
Yeah.
Cool. But
I I played one where it came down and like it hit me once and I went to like, 9 or whatever. And I was like, all right. Um, and so then I had to like maneuver around it, but I still maneuvered around it and like was able to counter the Bloodletter Vaclazats and kill this and
yeah,
come back around and like win the game. Um, so yeah. Eh,
it's a
but
cool card, and I'm
I
with
think
you.
it's
Like, I think this is a great choice because it just feels like it's pushed in terms of the types of cards they normally do with this ability, where it's like
exactly
this hits for 10, the first time. That's kind of
what.
crazy. And it has death touch, so you don't want to block it. 2/3's
Mhm.
aggressive stats, and it comes back. But it's just, I think, too easy to work your way around for the
Yeah.
opponent.
When I was like first thinking this and like picking all this stuff, also just seeing this card, I think it's a sweet card. I'm happy that it is in standard at all, and I'm happy that there is a combo with it
Yeah.
to actually kill someone. So it is there. It just is a half court because I don't, if it won a tournament, I would be like, what the fuck? I'd be like, that'd be
Yeah,
amazing. Like I would be on the sidelines championing the person who won
for
with this
sure.
card.
Yeah.
And that is why I think that I'm picking this for half court.
Love it. Yeah.
Um, Overrated, underrated cards. Jeff, it seemed like oh, I guess like I have to do overrated
Yeah,
first.
you do have to go first.
Damn, you really
Unfortunately.
got me. So overrated cards. You know what? I think what I'm gonna say is Razorkin Needlehead. I have not really cared for this card. Oh, sorry, let me read it. So Razorkin Needlehead is red for 2/2 creature human assassin at rare. It has first strike during your turn, and then whenever an opponent draws a card, it deals 1 damage to them. I don't know if it's just the opponents I played against with this card. I feel like a lot of people were posting this and saying like, "Oh, mono red's back, baby! Like this is the card we needed." Like a 2/2 not haster mini Shieldred. Like I don't think it's really doing what people want, or maybe people just aren't using it the way I think they should be. I don't know what it is, but like every time I see this come down, I'm like, okay, we'll see. And then I feel like I'm playing a lot of opponents who are afraid of it dying. I don't know. It's like every time I see it on the battlefield, it just is not really impressive to me, and is just not the thing I'm worried about in a mono red matchup. And just not. It's just not doing it. Like,
Yeah, I've never heard of this card until you just said it.
all right,
I'm
well, maybe it's not as
surprised.
overrated as I thought.
Well, I mean, I'm surprised it's in like the community like that because to me this is the classic trap card
Hmm.
because you don't want to play this main deck. What does this do? 1 damage a turn, maybe, and like maybe two once. But to maybe it's a sideboard card. Is what I'm thinking, like against
Oh,
decks that draw a
interesting.
lot of cards. But actually, this is why I say it's a trap. When you're mono red against the decks that draw a lot of cards, what you need is to kill them quickly.
Hmm.
This doesn't matter to them. They're not going to draw like 6 cards when this is on the battlefield. They're just going to get rid of it because
Hmm.
by that point they've taken control of the game. So this card is not what mono red needs. I don't think at all. I wouldn't even consider playing this. Now I'm not a mono red expert, but you need
In
haste. In
Yeah,
modern like current day Magic,
in
mono red, you
standard
need
right now, you
haste.
need haste.
And this ability to me strikes me as maybe a sideboard ability, but it seems like a trap sideboard ability because nobody's just sitting there like drawing 4 cards against mono red on turn 3 or 4 and being like,
Hmm.
yeah, that'll do it. It's like, no, you start drawing cards when you've taken control of the game, and this won't matter at that point. So
Hmm.
what you need is something that hits hard and fast against the decks that are trying to control the game. And like this doesn't do that. And
It's also that those
Just don't think,
decks that draw cards don't care about first strike.
yeah, right? Like the first strike just doesn't matter. Um, if this had that ability and it was a 2/2 haste instead of
Hmm.
that weird first ability, maybe you could get me on board. But has first strike on your turn.
I know that R&D is trying to do that because it makes blocking better. Or sorry, it makes attacking into first strikers better. Um, so that you
Yeah,
want
I get why, like, the whole
no,
first strike during your turn, because like first strike on defense isn't really the intent of
yeah.
first strike.
The
Um,
first strike is you run at me and then I strike first.
yeah, exactly.
It's like actually I guess you stroke second, but whatever.
Yeah,
But no, it just seemed like this in combination with a couple other cards. People are saying like, oh, well, to be fair, every set people say Modern Red's back, but multiple sets. Every time we see a cool Modern Red card that doesn't have haste, and we're really excited about it, and we're like, this is the card. Every time it's just like it doesn't have haste. You just can't play it in Modern Magic without haste. Like it just doesn't. Nothing is good enough.
haste is so much more damage than this card represents, right? So it's
Yes.
like, yeah, that's
Yep.
it. That's a great pick. And this is a classic type of card that people would overrate as well. Um, Okay, so for mine, I'm not, again, I feel like I say this every single time, but I'm not super in tune with what people are rating highly. But I've played against this card more times than I think I should have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a high profile one. So I was like, all right, maybe that's our pick. And so for me, it was Overlord of the Baelmerk.
Oh.
So this is the black one. It's 3 black with impending 5, 1 in a black for a 5/5. When it enters or attacks, mill 4 cards and return a non-avatar creature card or planeswalker from graveyard to your hand. I've run into this in just like a ton of different sort of black decks in standard. And it feels like they're all trying it. And like the blue-black Dimir deck from previous season, there was a deck that was built all around self-mill and obviously ran like 4 of these. And all of those decks did their thing. They impending
Mm-hmm.
this early. And it's just like, I don't know, it's just a 5/5 that sometimes gets you value. It just doesn't seem like I don't really understand why people are putting this in their Dimir decks and cutting the I'm blanking on the name, but the 5/5 flyer that like comes back as a land and like makes the
Oh,
if you ever
Aklasats, the four
yeah,
four
it's like
flyer. Yeah,
why is this getting the nod over that? Like that's crazy to me. And so
that's definitely a better threat than this.
yeah, like I feel like if you're gonna play this, you need to care about self-mill, but then you just
Oh,
open yourself up to
getting
graveyard hate.
vacuumed.
Yeah, getting vacuumed.
You
Who are
know,
you gonna call? Um,
ghost vacuum.
but like this isn't a mid-range card and people are playing it in mid-range decks. And it was like this is weird because there's just like stronger stuff to play.
Hmm.
This is very clearly asking you to do a certain thing, and I don't think it even does that. Like, if you're going to do a self-mill deck, like you want to be more about the Oculus and less about the Overlord of the Baelmer. Like, I don't want to return
Hmm.
stuff to my hand, right? Like, I'm
No, no,
I'm
I want.
reanimating. Why am I returning a creature to my hand? Um, s- it just
Yes.
feels like I don't get this card, and I've seen it a lot, and I always win because they did nothing with their turn two. It's just like I don't get it, but maybe there's something like it's powerful. Don't get me wrong,
Hmm.
and maybe everyone thinks this card sucks too. But I was just like I've played against this card way more often than I thought I ever would, so I'm just gonna chuck it in there.
I can definitely see that as well. I've seen it around probably as like the same amount as you have, and yeah, I guess it doesn't scare me nearly as much as the other ones. Like the green one and the white one are like, ooh, like
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the green one because the green one is absurdly good. It's just not like gonna show up in these rankings because it's not the type of decks you and I play.
Hmm.
But that card's amazing and just
It
slots right
is.
into like domain control as a much better topiary stomper. But like,
Yes, it's much better Topiary Stomper. And also the domain control has, I mean, I've been playing against a lot of like four color ones, except for this is the fifth color, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's redless. So
right.
it makes their mana base better, and it also counts towards domain. Um, but like it's annoying. And this card just becomes like, hey, I'm gonna kill you for real though, not just like funsies.
Yeah. Overlord of the Hauntwoods, super strong card. But
It's so strong.
Overlord of the Baelmerk, eh.
Meh. Yeah, I guess you don't really need like a raised dead. Like you don't do.
This is constructed, man. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Um,
Um, are there cards that you were excited about that you think are nobody cares about but you care about?
okay, so the pick for this is maybe not totally valid either, but I think
Hmm.
this card is really good and I've never run into it. So that's the lens
Hmm.
I'm going at. There's a card that I've played against a lot and I think it's bad. There's a card I haven't actually played against at all from some of those same decks
Right,
that
and
I
you think
think
it's
just
super good.
is good enough.
Hmm.
And so my underrated card is Kaito, Bane of Nightmares. I think you just slap this card in your blue black like Demir
Anything.
deck from previous seasons, and it's just good. You don't need to be ninja themed. You don't need any of that
No.
crap. It's just good on its own, and I never play against it, even against blue black decks. Maybe I just haven't run into it, like they got unlucky, didn't draw it or whatever. This card scene is very, very good, and I'm surprised that I haven't played against it. So that's why I picked it as my
Yeah,
underrated card. I
please
think it's
do.
kind of obvious why it's good, but it's like I never play against this card,
Yeah.
and I don't know why.
I know that we've read this on the show. I know everyone knows it's the only planeswalker of the set, but please
Yeah.
read Kaito for us.
All right. Kaito, Bane of Nightmares, 2 blue black, 4 loyalty. It has ninjutsu, 1 blue black. So if you attack with a creature that goes unblocked, you can ninjutsu this in. During your turn, as long as Kaito has 1 or more loyalty counters on him, he's a 3/4 ninja creature that has hexproof. +1, you get an emblem with ninjas you control, get +1/+1. 0, surveil 2, then draw a card for each opponent who lost life this turn. And -2, tap target creature, put 2 stun counters on it. Like, that's a card for 4, possibly 3
Three.
mana.
Yeah. This is, I 100% agree with everything you're saying about this card and that it should be everywhere. And this card's amazing. And I want to give props to Edrico in our Discord for a fucking sweet blue black deck I was playing on stream the other day that he built. And Kaito's all over the place in that. And he was actually in the chat helping me, giving me tips on how to play the deck.
Yeah.
And Kaito's super interesting. A couple tips when you're playing with this card is that uh, when Kaito is a creature, you have to scroll down to the -2 ability. So you might forget that you
That
can
it
stun a
exists.
creature. Yeah. So on your turn, it looks like there's only two abilities you can do. You have to scroll down to see the tap and stun somebody. Um,
Which is relevant because this is a creature. And normally when your
mhm.
creature can like tap theirs down, you have to tap your own creature to do it. You don't get to like just tap theirs down and attack. But
No, this one does
Kai
that.
yeah, Kaito's like, no
Um,
problem.
Very much so. Don't forget that the emblem is for ninjas. So like Kaito is a ninja. Obviously, like the emblem's for Kaito, but
Yeah.
like you can ninjutsu in your other Kaitos while this Kaito's attacking.
Yeah.
And that Kaito also gets the +1/+1s from the emblems. In a weird way, I was playing a deck that like only Kaito was the only ninja for whatever reason in my mind. It was like, oh, it has counters on it. It does not. You can have any
So you
ninja.
could like Kaito activate pre-combat,
Hmm.
attack, swap in a new Kaito, and
Yes.
activate another loyalty ability.
After combat, yes. So if you have two Kaitos, you can just cycle them back and forth like you do with other ninjutsu
And get
creatures.
the old double loyalty. Yeah.
Yeah, double emblem if you want.
Yeah, or double stun for
Yeah.
two
Or
turns kind of thing. Or
stun, bounce it back to your hand, play Kaito, draw cards. Like
yeah,
Kaito's dope, and I think the other thing that's hard about this card is that you can play it without ninjutsuing it. You can play it for four.
yeah,
When you play the card, it feels very much so that like I can play it for three though. I should play it for three.
right.
No, you can still play it for four, and it's still good.
Yeah, this is a
It's just
strong planeswalker. It's
also it's
like,
a creature. Like don't forget,
yeah,
it's you're a creature. Like
it's
it
like
doesn't block,
sneaky
but
Gideon
oh,
vibes. It's
it's
giving me
sneaky
like,
Gideon. Blackblade. Oh, anyway, this is one of my favorite cards of the set. I really like it a lot, and yeah, super sweet. If you want to check out that deck that Edrico built, go to our Discord. It's in the
yeah, check it
standard
out.
space. We're talking about it. Super cool. Oh, Kaito's so good. Um, I have an underrated card that
Lay
might
it on
not.
me.
I don't know. It felt too good to be my half court shot, so I thought that I would just like talk about it here.
Right.
But this card is Enduring Vitality. So it's the green Enduring enchantment.
Okay. Okay.
So this one is one green green for a 3/3 enchantment creature, Elk Glimmer at rare. It has vigilance. It also has the ability creatures you control have tap, add one mana of any color. And then it has the enduring thing where if
Yeah.
it would die, return it to the battlefield as an enchantment, and it's no longer a creature. So, of all the enduring cards, like my favorite ones are like the white one and the blue one. Those are very obvious because they draw you cards immediately. The black one seems cute, and the red one seems not very good, even though
Yeah.
it gives haste. But the green one always seemed kind of be like, I don't know. It like does the thing, but like, is it good? Like, it seems
Yeah.
kind of commandery to me, or maybe you have a bunch of tokens and you can tap them and play something huge. Like, is it because like what was that card from Shadows of over Innistrad? Like, um,
Um,
mon- it's like a monolith thing. Grim,
yeah.
no, not Grim Monolith, but
No, that's
it's
totally different, right?
definitely not a Grim Monolith. But it's some
Cryptolith, right?
Cryptolith, right? So not even close to Monolith at all. Sick,
It
I
has
love it.
lith in it.
Yeah. Cryptolith, right. So it does the same thing, but for 2 mana, it's an enchantment. All your creatures are birds of paradise as well as whatever else they do.
Yeah. Those
But
effects always suck way more than I think they're going to.
yeah, they do. But I did find a deck that is a low tier, but I found a sweet list. I did not build it, but it is a creature combo deck, and this is one of the pieces of it. So, what the deck is trying to do is its teamer here.
Okay.
Um, so, let me just explain it. It's a teamer deck where you're playing Vitality as well as there's a card, there's an otter from Bloomborough. It's like it's a storm otter. Shit. It's like I feel like I'm so unprepared, but it's really the beers talking.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a there we go. I want to say beam splitter, but it's definitely not that. Storm splitter is the card.
Okay.
So Storm Splitter is three and a red for a 1/4 creature otter wizard. At Mythic, it has haste. And it says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you create a token that's a copy of Storm Splitter, and you exile the token at the end of your turn.
Okay.
So when you have Storm Splitter and Enduring Vitality out, you cast one spell, you make a copy of Storm Splitter, you resolve the spell. Now both your Storm Splitters can tap for mana. You
Hmm.
tap that, play another spell, you make two more Storm Splitters. You keep going, you storm off, and it's like you make a million Storm Splitters because you keep
Oh, that's
doubling and doubling and
awesome.
doubling, and then you
Yeah.
attack for lethal. So your whole deck is just like a bunch of adventure creatures that have instants on one side, Um, you're playing like cash grab. You're playing um, the say its name from the set.
Hmm.
You have one copy of like the demon it goes and gets or whatever. But you're basically filling up your graveyard with a bunch of stuff. And then as you're doing it, you're like slowly finding your combo pieces, and then you're able to stick both of them, and you just go off and you attack them for like 50 in one turn. And it's a really fun deck that
Yeah.
really is one note. Like if you're able to exile the enduring vitality, you get screwed. Or they can kill the storm splitter, but you can try to make more copies while they're doing it, but it doesn't always work out. um but pretty fun. It doesn't take as long as like that Teamer Lands deck did, where you're trying to fireball them, and you're
Yeah,
playing a
yeah,
million
yeah.
lands over and over again. But it's a cool creature control deck, or sorry, creature combo deck. Um, but I just don't think it's good enough to crack up to anywhere, which is kind of where you want it. You want it to be like
Totally.
fun and cool, but you don't want it to be like the best.
That's what I was gonna say. Once combo decks become like tier one or the best deck in the format, everyone just hates it. But
Hmm.
when they're like, they're an underdog, but they're like a weird kind of cool interaction that makes this combo, everyone loves it. So you
Hmm.
kind of want combo decks to be in that zone where, you know, if Matt Nass was playing it, then it's excellent. But for
Hmm.
most people, it's slightly subpar. Uh, that's the combo deck level right there.
Exactly, exactly. So anyway, uh, I
Great
think
choice.
I think I'll
Loved it.
probably I'll probably be playing more of that deck and Enduring Vitality. Um, but it is what kind of gave me like the exiling cards so annoying. Like, please don't
Yeah.
exile my
So
cards.
much exile that exists right now.
I know. Ugh. Anyway, Jeff, do you have any final thoughts before we go into our last call for this whole thing?
Uh, Not much other than like this is a cool set. It has contributed a lot of relevant cards, and making these choices wasn't easy, and that's how I always know, like, yeah, cool set, because there's a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah, totally. Totally, totally. Well, nice. Sweet. All right, folks. I think it's time for last call. So we're coming to the end of the episode. We have to rate these beers. So as always, we rate beers on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. But before we do that, I just want to say, hey, everybody's in a different tier at a different time. This is just a fun way to rate beers. So don't feel bad when we say that bronze beers are trash. They're horrible. You have to spit them out. You pour them on the ground. You piss on them because they're just, ugh, they're the worst thing you could possibly put in your body.
Yeah, silver beer is like pretty similar, but you don't piss on it. It's just kind of boring.
Yeah, you just piss them out very quickly.
Yeah,
Gold beers are, yeah, they're it's beer.
yeah. And
Yeah.
platinum, these are solid. These are good beers, and you would be happy to have it again.
Mhm. Diamond beers are exceptional. You like these a lot. You show them to your friends.
And mythic, these are the best of the best. These are the abhorrent oculi of the beer world.
This is the ley line of resonance of the beer world. Um, I guess it makes more sense because the Oculus is in fact a mythic card. So
I thought you were going to say is in fact good, but
wow, ouch, 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 ouch. Um. Anyway, Jeff, Grizzly Beer. What do we
yeah,
think about this?
I loved it. I thought it was really good.
Hmm.
What I look for in a brown ale is two things. The first is like it's got to be body forward. That's the most important thing to me. Like it has to have that beer body, which like basically is
You
what
mean that
characterizes.
bear body?
Yeah, it's gonna be like, yeah. But it should also be like a little sweet and balanced. And
Hmm.
so like where a lot of beer is like really hoppy and that's how it balances the body, to me a well done brown is like, yeah, we have a lot of like malt, grain that's gone in
Hmm.
here. So you have that, for lack of a better word, like thick beer, but it's not
Beer.
balanced by hops like an IPA is. It's balanced by just that nice little sweetness on the
Hmm.
on the tip there, and I think that's exactly what this beer was. So, it's not like I'm not drinking this being like, wow, I've never tried anything like that. It's so amazing,
Hmm.
but it's just exactly what I wanted from a brown.
Nice. I think it's interesting you were talking about the sweetness because this one seems less sweet than other browns I've had, but in kind of a refreshing way, where it's
Yeah,
like it still has those characteristics, but because of the brewery that it's at, for whatever reason, it just isn't so honey sweet, which sometimes you get with browns, um, which I do like as well. I do know that a lot of people I talk to at like my job who are worried about like malty beers, like, oh, is it sweet? They always have men
yeah.
always have that. Oh, is it sweet? It's like, yes, I'm gonna say yes, but like not like really sweet. Anyway, this kind of fits that bid for me, where it's like there's a sweetness to it, but it still feels like a, a little bit sharper. It's not there's not like honey and nut notes as much,
Yeah.
um, which tend to be a normal kind of brown ale flavor. So this one still had that rugged manness to it that I think that a lot of non brown ale drinking men would hope for because they're afraid that if it's too sweet, they will I don't know, be gay or something. I don't know.
Lose their testosterone.
I guess
Yeah,
so,
I
yeah.
don't
Oh no.
couldn't do without that.
Well, that's the most important thing in my life. My testosterone, no.
Yeah. No, that's a good call out too, because like most brown ales are sweet. What I described is just how a brown ale works, but
Hmm.
I think mostly here it's balanced well. It's not like, oh, I made a bad beer and then dumped honey in it.
For sure. Which like
It's more
sometimes
like, yeah,
it, not so much that it feels like that, but like there are browns that are just like, wow, this is way sweeter than it needed to be.
yeah.
Um, and
But
this
I'm
one's
totally
definitely
with
not
you.
it.
Browns need to be sweet. Like
Yeah.
you're not just gonna drink a bunch of like, you know, darkened grains like steeped in water.
Mhm.
Like it's a little much even for me, Zach,
Yeah.
the most
Even,
masculine of
I have a lot of testosterone,
yeah, it's
so like
like
I can give out as much as
I could afford to lose some.
I could lose so much. Like it's totally
Yeah.
fine. But no, I
I could
like
even
it.
take on a bit of estrogen and
Yeah,
still
yeah.
be
Still
still
be
be
just
yeah,
like pumping
a
out
lumberjack.
that sweet, sweet tea.
Yeah.
Um no, anyway. What do you give this beer? What do you think?
I'm gonna go diamond, I think.
All
I
right.
liked it. I really enjoyed it.
I'll probably say the same because
Yeah.
I've had this beer a couple times and decided that I wanted to show it to you. So that's showing it to my friends. So I think that
Gotcha.
that kind of
Yeah, that does
counts.
that does hit the definition.
Hit the mark. Hit the mark. Anyway, sweet. Great beers tonight. Great cards. All that fun stuff. Let's go to closing time. So, as always, you can reach us at Arena Regulars on Twitter and Instagram.
May also find us on Arena itself. Our username is Arena Regulars Podcast.
That is right. You can find me personally if you want to talk to me at Zulberg. That's Zeulberg on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm also on Twitch at regular_Zach. But Jeff, where can they find you?
Best place is our Discord channel. If you want to come chat standard decks, if you want to come tell us why all of our Worth Our Slots are totally wrong, we are happy to hear your opinion. Come on to our Discord channel. The link for that is in the show notes.
Mm. Also, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify as well. Leave us a review there. Please go to our YouTube channel. Check out our beautiful faces and our beautiful beers. And just say, hey, that's what we'd really care about. It helps grow the podcast, but most of all, we'd like to talk to all of you. This has been the Arena Regulars.
Reminding you to keep a notepad next to you when you play Duskmourn Draft, because you want to write down every card they milled and which morph creature it coincides with.
Good night. All right, that's fine.